Recently, I haven't done any new embroidery projects and this might sound funny to you, but I actually craved one. So I drew a simple embroidery pattern and now it's scanned and ready for you to embroider as well. It's a cute strawberry pattern and I think it'll be a perfect summer craft. Instead of making this into an embroidery hoop part, I'm specifically making this design for a jar cover, which means sewing a jar cover will be our next project. I mean, you can use it for any project or as a simple hoop part. But this is what I'm planning on doing and I'll treat my fabric and design according to that when going forward. Now keeping that in mind, I'm first gonna place the opening of the jar downwards on the fabric. This one is a cotton fabric, and also make sure you are leaving about 2 inches of space around the fabric for sewing the jar cover later. Now start to outline the jar opening using a fabric marking pen, and I'm using a heat erasable fabric marker. This area will be the top part of the jar cover, and this circular area will guide you where your embroidery design is gonna go. I have also marked this circular area in dashed lines on the design, and ignore that part in case you are using this design for something else. Now it's time to transfer the pattern onto the fabric, and you can use any method you like. But before doing any of that, first you need to properly set the fabric into an embroidery hoop. First, unscrew the embroidery hoop and place the fabric on top of the smaller hoop. Then place the larger hoop with the screw on top of it. Now start to tighten the screw and also make sure to drag the fabric on all sides to make it into a fabric drum-like surface. When your fabric is properly stretched, it's time to transfer the pattern and you can choose any method you like. If you have trouble with that or you don't know how to transfer, make sure to check out our tutorial on transferring embroidery pattern onto a fabric. I'll leave the link in the description. After transferring the pattern onto the fabric, we are all ready for the embroidery. I have already threaded my needle and made a knot at the end. Just so you know, I'm going to use all 6 strands throughout this project. Let's start with the top leafy part of the strawberry, and I'm going to use satin stitch to fill that space. From the back of the fabric, insert the needle at the point where the top leafy part connects to the stem and pull it all the way. Now go back down, dividing one of the smaller leafy parts into 2. After that point, I'm just gonna fill up those 2 spaces with satin stitch. Don't worry, we also have a tutorial on how to do the satin stitch in case you want to learn that too. Actually, it's no big deal. You just have to make simple straight stitches closer to each other. Try to keep them in a particular direction to make them nice and neat. I don't have a proper plan on how to embroider this, but I'm thinking of embroidering this freely using a fewer number of stitch types. I'm going to use DMC embroidery threads and I'll list down the color code if you would like. Since these leafy parts don't have clear separation lines, you can move on to the next leafy part once you have almost filled the first one. Again, divide that one into 2 in the middle and then work your way through from one half after the other. Continue doing so till you reach the last leafy part. As I mentioned earlier, I wanted to do this freely, and that's something I love about hand embroidery. Even with the same design, you can select which embroidery stitch you are going to use and then completely change the way it looks at the end. Whether you are selling your crafts or not, the main purpose of crafting is for pleasure. It's not supposed to be a chore. So don't use satin stitch just because I use it. Use some other stitch you prefer and just make sure you are enjoying the process. This is how the top leafy part looks at the end, and I think it turned out okay. Now whenever you are changing the thread color or running out of thread, turn over to the back of the fabric and make a couple of knots to secure the stitch. Finally, trim the thread and you can then start over with the next part. The next one is gonna be the strawberry, and again I'm using satin stitch to fill that area too. I have changed the thread color to match with the strawberry, and first I'm gonna divide the area into several parts. Then it'll be easier to fill the space, one small part at a time. As you can see, I divided the space into 5 smaller parts, and they are directing towards the 2 sides of the strawberry. I have a feeling that this will give a unique texture and character to this strawberry. Now, starting from one of the smaller parts, fill the space using the satin stitch. After you have completed one smaller part, move on to the other and fill that one too. When it comes to the middle triangular part, it has 2 different angles. So what I do is, I make satin stitches interchangeably in both directions until it fills up. As I told you, just change things as you go. You don't have to stick to a plan. I checked out several ways of embroidering a strawberry, and there were so many beautiful ways to do that. But I thought satin stitch is the easiest. But instead of just doing vertical stitches, I made a small change by making them in an angled position, which I think came out totally fine. We are almost at the end of the strawberry, and after that you can make a couple of knots at the back like we did earlier. I'm not going to show all of that here. Now our next step is adding small spots to this strawberry. For that, first change your thread color to go with the spots. Coming from the back of the fabric, insert the needle somewhere on the strawberry and pull it all the way. Next, go back down, making a short straight stitch like this. Another alternative is making French knots instead of these shorter stitches. I'm sure it will look even prettier, but I'm going to stick with this simply because it's easier. Continue doing that until you think you got enough spots on the strawberry. After you have made the final stitch on the strawberry, we can move on to the next part, which is the stem of the strawberry. For that part, I selected a darker green color thread, and I'm going to use stem stitch for that. If you would like to learn how to do the stem stitch, make sure to check out the tutorial on that one too. Simple back stitch is another good option, but I personally like the stem stitch because of its twisted-like character. Making shorter stitch lengths would be easier since this part has a curvy shape. Continue doing the stem stitch until you reach the midpoint of the flower. The next one is going to be the flower with 5 straight lines for 5 petals. In that case, lacy daisy stitch is the best match to make beautiful petal-like stitches. As you can see, I have changed my thread color into white, and considering one straight line as one petal, one by one, embroider these lines into a simple flower. We also have a tutorial on lacy daisy stitch, and make sure to check that one out if you want to learn more. Whenever you can't make a proper petal-like shape, you can simply loosen up the loop using your needle point and then try it again. With the final lacy daisy stitch, we are all done with the flower, and you can leave it as it is, or you can go one step further and make a single French knot at the middle of the flower to enhance its look. I choose a different thread color for that just to stand out. You can skip this part if you are okay with just 5 petals for the flower. But simple additions like these always make your crafts more appealing to the eye. Now we are at the final stage of our embroidery project, and it's the leaf at the bottom. To complete that, first I'm going to do stem stitch along the mid-rib of the leaf. You can use any stitch as you prefer, and back stitch will be a more easier option. One reason I dragged without doing any embroidery projects recently is I didn't get a chance to buy an embroidery stand yet. I did a little research, and then you know what happened? I went into a rabbit hole. I mean, it's completely okay not to have an embroidery stand if you don't video your projects like I do. Things get a little shaky when you embroider for a longer period of time, and having a stand would be helpful in that way. So if you see things shaking once in a while, I just want to apologize for that. Now if you already have a stand, please share your experience with us so I can learn from you as well. After you have embroidered along the mid-rib, now it's time to embroider 2 sides of the leaf, and I'm going to use satin stitch for that part as well. First I'm going to fill one side, and as you can see, I'm making my stitches pointing an angled way to go with its serrated margin. I could have just used fly stitch instead of doing stem stitch for the mid part and satin stitch for the rest. But I didn't want to add one more type of stitch, and again I just want to do this freely without any plan. I mean, who knows, maybe this will turn out even better. If you have used a heat erasable fabric marking pen for this project like I do, you can get rid of any markings left by simply giving a heat press. But since this is an embroidery work, make sure to place another thicker fabric on top and then slightly press on top of that, so you won't damage or squish this embroidery work. Actually, this was suggested by one of you, and that's the importance of having a small craft community. After you have completed one side, move to the other side and continue to embroider that side as well. There is not much to tell. You only have to fill the space, keeping in mind that stitches need to be deviating from the mid-rib to its serrated margin in an angled way. We are almost at the end, and I really like its messy-like character. It feels more natural this way. Our strawberry embroidery project is all done at this point, and mine will go on top of a jar cover. Now if you are into sewing, make sure to stay connected with our next video as well. Please like and subscribe if you like this video, and leave a comment to share your thoughts as well. Thank you all for watching, and I'll join you in the next one.